I want to not. So Jess, so this is just, the purpose of this was just to allow people to continue to ask questions. So I think I probably have only 2 questions.
Okay.
The first one is, I want to make sure that we have an agreement that on how we're going to measure the results of the objectives that you laid out. And let me tell you what I think we should do, and just make sure that you're comfortable with it. If not, then how would you propose to change it? So with respect to the increase in retail sales during May and June, that's fairly straightforward.
Yeah.
But right. Well, actually, sorry. The way I think we should be measuring that is not whether or not Woodstock sales increased by 5%, but whether or not we changed the relationship between our sales increase and the rest of Vermont's sales increase. So let me give you a specific example. Woodstock, so I have data now, and this is all sort of real time. It's very painful to collect this, but the state provides the information to let us measure this. And so we can see Woodstock's retail, by retail, I mean meals, rooms, and alcohol, which is the best measure. We also have overall businesses in Woodstock, all businesses. But I think the best measure is meals, rooms, and alcohol, because that's the best measure of tourism. And we know how much revenue every town in Woodstock has received from their businesses, going back to 2015 monthly. And if you look at it on an annual basis, Woodstock outperforms the rest of Vermont consistently, almost every year. Meaning that if Vermont grows at 3%, we grow at 5%. If Vermont grows at 4%, we grow at 7%. The gap is different, but we outperform them. And I think for the most part, and we can take out towns that are advertising, perhaps like Stowe or somebody, but for the most part, I think the impact of a program like yours or Class 4s should be to change that relationship, because we had that relationship going back to 2015, 2016, 17, when we weren't really doing much effective marketing. So so for example, it would be unfair to hold you to a 5% increase target if in fact the weather in May and June is horrible and there's a flood, for example. What we care about is that your work or Class 4's work has an impact above what we would have done without your work. So therefore, so it's not just on it's not just on the upside or the downside, it's both. If the environment and the economy is really bad, you shouldn't have to achieve a 5% growth. Maybe break even is really good performance because everything else in the state is down 6 or 7%, and we usually beat the state by 2 or 3%. Now we're beating it by 5%. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to make this down to the 10th of a decimal point on the growth. It's just that what we should do after May and June, and it'll take us a couple months to get the data, is to look at what happened in May and June in Woodstock. Look at what happened in the rest of the state during those months, and look at what the pattern's been in the past, and see whether or not there seems to be any general lift. And if there has, then I think we can say that, we have to assume that it's in part or entirely or somewhat due to the work that we're doing with respect to marketing. And if there isn't a lift, then we should assume possibly that it hasn't had as much of an impact. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, and this is actually something that Charles and I talked about today, like it's sort of a hard thing to measure regardless, because like there are things beyond our control that could push it one way or the other, right? Like we could have explosive growth in May and June, and that could have nothing to do with what either of us are doing. Like, and at the same time, we could do all the right things and like the weather's bad or whatever, something else happens where we don't really have control over that. So
no, but this is designed for precisely that reason. In other words, let's just take the weather being bad. The only way in which the weather being bad would make this my measurement a bad measurement if the weather was only bad in Woodstock and it was great in the rest of Vermont. Right? Because what I'm saying is exactly, let's take the weather being bad. What I'm trying to do is to adjust for exactly those kind of external things that we can't. In other words, if the external things are affecting Vermont, then the approach that I'm proposing will take out those external factors. It's only if something uniquely happens to Woodstock, which is possible. For example, imagine that the weather is beautiful everywhere in Vermont. The water company fails on May 1st, and we shut the road to all visitors in Woodstock because we don't have any water. Obviously, that's an example of something where we would have to say, well, we can't compare Woodstock to everything else because Woodstock was different. But my point is that there is a way, that we have a very rough way, which is better than no way, to take out the effect of things that you can't control by looking at the rest of Vermont. Or if you want, by comparing us to several specific towns. We could compare ourselves to Stowe and Ludlow and Killington. You know what I mean? I'm open to the best. This is not a perfect measure by any means. We've looked back at the flood, for example, and the data is kind of ambiguous, but it does look like Woodstock got a bigger lift. I think Woodstock was more heavily, not I think, Woodstock was more heavily affected than Vermont.
Yeah.
We know that. I mean, I can show you the retail sales data. And Woodstock's climb back was therefore steeper and could support the argument that the reason for that was because of our marketing efforts. So, but anyway, I'm not suggesting that this is perfect by any means, but it is, I think, critical for us to measure. In other words, we don't care about any of the metrics that you or Class 4 are going to use to gauge how well you're doing. Those are completely irrelevant to us. They're very relevant to you, and we want you to monitor them. Open rates, click-through rates, whatever, all that stuff. But we don't. If one person shows up in Woodstock, never answers any of our emails, or answers one email, and buys all of the merchandise in all of the stores, that's a success, not a failure. So we have to measure what we want to achieve has nothing to do with digital metrics. What we want to achieve has to do with the economy. So this measure of May and June allows us to do better than, when we look at digital metrics, we don't look at the economy at all. It's 100% assumption. We assume, and that is, yeah. So that's why I'm saying I want to, yeah. So that's, anyway, go ahead, Greta.
Are you basically just saying that for the May and June measurement, you're going to relax the 5% retail sales measurement, and we're just going to look at it in a broader way and just hope that. So are you just proposing a different way of measuring the success of May and June? That's what
Correct.
I'm gathering. Yeah.
That's all I'm suggesting.
Okay, cool. And you just want to make sure Jess and Charles are comfortable with that.
Right. And I'm doing it actually for precisely the reason, Jess, that you and Charles work. If, for example, we do a 5%, if we just do 5% measurement, then you're responsible for the things you can't control. If there's bad weather and you get 3%, we're going to say, look, you said you were going to get 5%, you didn't get 5%. That's not fair to you. By the same token, if Vermont goes up 20% and we go up 5%, it's not fair to us. The weather is good. Vermont goes up 20%, we go up 5%. It's not fair to us to say, congratulations, Jess or Charles, you did a great job. Because if you had done nothing, we probably would have gone up 20%. You see what I mean? So this is basically protecting both of us. It's basically measuring a little bit better. It's not perfect. It was definitely not perfect. And you can criticize it. I would be perfectly happy to have a different measure than that. If it's a better, you know what I mean? If I'm trying to just take out the things that you guys can't control The only way I know how to do it, which is not great, but it does it to some extent, is what I'm proposing. If there's a better way to do it, and we could agree on it, I don't want you, if we could agree on it soon, in next couple of weeks or something, that's fine. I'd be happy. I would be very happy if we could have a better measurement. I don't think there is one. But
John, all we're going to do in either.
Sorry, excuse me one second. Jess, obviously we're going to say the same thing to Charles.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, Larry.
No, I interrupted you. Apologies.
No, go ahead.
So all we're going to do if we go with either one of these proposals is we're going to take their best judgment or prediction as to what they can do. But, it's not like we're going to go in and burn their house down if they don't achieve it. I don't know, how sophisticated you want to get these measurements to be, because basically all we really want to do is to have some indication that the work they're doing is effective. And, what do you do if they don't meet a benchmark? What do? We just say, well, you didn't, you thought you would and you didn't, or you contracted that you would and you didn't, but I'm not sure.
Well, I think
where does it take us?
Yeah, well, I think where it takes us is in a future decision as to whether to decide.
Absolutely that. Absolutely.
No, I'm not suggesting a penalty clause, and I'm not suggesting, although some people have, I'm not suggesting that either Charles or Jess put any of their fees at risk.
Well, I think what we're trying to find out is whether or not the activity is effective. And it seems to me we want to pick whoever we decide to pick, and then measure to see whether it's effective or not. And if it was effective, we continue on. And if it wasn't, effective, we try something else.
Well, I think, well, yes, certainly. Sorry. Yeah.
I guess I'm not clear why it's relevant to Jess how we measure that success, other than that she is willing to say that she feels comfortable with the projections that whatever system you come up with.
That she's made. Well, I guess the reason, that's a fair point. The reason is to avoid the situation we're in right now before we grant this proposal. I'd like to not be in this again, because what we're doing right now is we're arguing with Class 4 and other people on the marketing committee about whether or not something is successful. And what they're saying is, look at all the click-through rates and look at all the visitors. And
Question.
If you would accept payment and click-through rates, we don't have to deal with this. We could just give you the percentages. But assuming you want to be paid with actual money, then that's not sufficient. And so what I'm trying to do is to get. In other words, I want to work with a firm that understands and is committed to the best actual impact, which has nothing to do with digital marketing. Nothing. I don't mean it's not digital marketing can't have impact. I mean, we don't care about digital marketing. We care about revenue. And so I want to make sure that.
I think, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, I just want to make sure that I'm trying to avoid, we're not going to sue you. We're not going to cut the contract. If it doesn't yield the growth that we're looking for, or the relative growth that we're looking for, obviously you would want to know that too. You say, well, gee, maybe I should use a green background instead of a yellow background when I post my blog, or whatever. You'll think about what you could do differently to have a better effect, but we're not going to penalize anyone. It would just let us focus on performance, and it might influence future decisions the next year when we say, well, maybe last year we spent $50,000 and we found that it looks like it gave us a 5 or 6% bump in revenues. Maybe we ought to be spending $400,000 this year, because that might give us, if we got another 6% or 8% revenue, maybe we get a 12% increase in revenues, and that would be worth $2 million, or vice versa. I'm trying to get us to a place where we can have that decision, where we as an EDC can make that decision based on economic benefit. We can't do that now because we don't, and this has nothing to do with Jess. Jess is the only one in this conversation that hasn't had a role in our disagreement yet because she hasn't been involved. We're not there yet. And so I'd like this process. One of the reasons why I'm prepared to invest in this process, despite not knowing whether we're going to get the economic benefits, is because I think this will allow us to figure out whether we are getting them. And I think that's really valuable. And I hope it gets us them also. Sorry, Jess, go ahead. So long.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately that the crux of it is that class 4 and myself, I'm coming further and further to the conclusion that I feel like it's apples to oranges, because I think our approaches are just vastly different. So I think,
but the objective is identical.
Right.
That's fine. No, I agree. The approaches are very different, and we're going to have to pick. No, I'm not at all talking. My question here has nothing to do with your approach, which you're, I think, correctly saying that your approaches are very different. We're going to have to decide which approach we're more comfortable with. But for both of you, I just want to make sure that I'm fixing another problem, which is fixable. We have a tough decision to make about approaches because there's two very good approaches, and they are different. I agree with that. But
So
I just want to make
John, are you just trying to achieve like a tacit agreement from Jess in class 4 that if they're hired and they do this work for off season, that this is the criteria that we're going to use to assess their success?
correct. In fact, what might make it easier, Jess, is you're right. So it's not really a question. I guess it's a statement.
Okay.
And what I'd like to do, Jess, is let me share with you the little one Excel chart, which just shows it's a bar chart from 2015 to 2023. And it shows the growth in Woodstock versus the growth in all the rest of Vermont. And you'll see that we're beating the rest of Vermont by not quite a consistent amount. You'll have to look at it. It's not, this isn't a calculation. It's not a formula. You'll look at the shape of the chart. And then what we're going to do is put in May and June, we're going to add another bar to the chart. And looking at that bar together, we're going to say, okay, it seems that Woodstock was the same, the relationship between Woodstock and the rest of the state didn't change, or it did. And it's not going to be precise. And given that, you might decide to do something differently or not. And we might decide that this has had an impact or not. And then there's no other consequences. We're not going to fine you or scream at you, or we might not renew your contract, or we might want to say, how can you double your work? Because we want to invest more right now. Look how good it was.
Right.
I guess maybe I'm sort of informing you, and what I don't want you to do is to feel, well, wait a minute, because sorry, this has happened. But wait a minute, we did what you asked us to do.
Right.
And by the way, I think that did happen. I think class 4 did do what we asked them to do. It's just what we asked them to do. We forgot to ask them to generate revenue for us. So I just want to make that mistake again. So.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
So I have a question kind of coming, something that came up during John talking. So I'm wondering, your other blog and website and your, jessandkirby.com, is a very different situation, obviously, than woodstockbt.com, as far as, there are partnerships and everything like that aren't really relevant here. But just thinking about like how you were able to have a successful partnership with the Woodstock Inn and Resort and drive a lot of revenue to that specific entity. Are there ways that you can think of that woodstockbt.com, or, like through our emailing or anything like that, there are easy ways to have attribution that just shows that, like, without someone having to swipe their credit card or anything like that, just showing, like codes or something people can input, or user-friendly way to show that like your marketing efforts are directly leading to revenue?
Great question.
Yeah. I mean, there's yes, there's kind of all the metrics that we sort of talked about before. One thing is to look at Like if I'm creating content, let's just say I create like an SEO optimized blog post, like I can look at how traffic is coming to the site and like what's bringing in that traffic. And I was kind of actually looking at that for the website over the last few days, looking at the Woodstock VT one to see what's bringing in traffic. And it does have, it has strong SEO health there. But there's tons of things we can do on the website and through email. We would have to obviously partner probably with businesses to do some sort of unique code or something where when people are booking, they either mention it or use it on their website so that we can track like, okay, they saw this code to get 10% off for their stay in May through our email because that was the only place we promoted. So there's like certain little unique things we could do. I mean, I know this isn't a conversation about the website, but like, that is just, we need to redo it because it's just such a roadblock in terms of like being able to act quickly and make changes and do things that is just costing us more money because we have to go through Origin and everything costs money. You can't just like quickly do something on your own. Like we could just, if we had a different site, we could easily create like a special landing page or a spot on the website where it's like, these are our specials for the month of May or promotions for the month of May or June or whatever. And then those are unique to our website. So we know if they've booked through those links or use those promo codes, or maybe it's something with a shop or a restaurant, we know that they found it through the website. But right now, like, I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure we could do it, but I don't know.
Jess, sorry, this is a great question and a great answer. Although the very first part, the very first part is not what we want. When you just said, we can check, where the traffic is coming from. But as soon as you started talking about codes and unique landing pages and so forth, that if we can develop a measure like that, that would be better, or certainly augment the measure that I'm describing. We don't have any of those things, which is why I've proposed what I proposed. But if we can do better along the lines of what you're saying, fantastic. Now, let me give you, I think it's possible to fix this problem immediately, meaning in a week, without redoing the website. It's technically possible. Tell me, Jess, if you think if this makes sense to you. Because if it does, Greta, we could try to do this. I have a server, and I can create the ability. I can create the ability to display multiple pages in a frame and keep track of them, I think. And so if we could take one page and create one new page at Origin called the landing page, and it would have nothing on it except a, what's it called? Not a window. Well, it's sort of a window, but there's a name for it. It would have a window, which is basically serving up what's on my server. And you can have complete control over that. So in other words, you can create at no cost. So basically what'll happen is someone will go to that page, and it will look like it's on the Origin site, and the whole frame will, the menu and all that stuff will be the Origin site. But what's actually in the window is customizable by you. You'll just have to pour HTML into it. I'm just going to create a big blank bucket, and you pour HTML into it, and that will be served up in the middle of the Origin page. This is a temporary way for us it's no way to run a website, but technically it will work fine.
I don't think that's
So you're just saying this would be a good
recommend that.
way to do it for the May and June
Well, yeah, I mean,
initiative
we don't.
specific.
I wouldn't say it's a good way to
Just
do it. I say this is the worst possible way to do it. It's just it would do it.
I don't
Yeah.
think we should do that. I think that, yeah, I think we could just focus on email. We could even have, we could have codes for separate things. Like we could have a code on social, we could have a code on email, we could have a code on the site, and I could figure out a way to do the lowest cost option on the existing website to figure out where, for example, we might want to put a code if there was someone that wanted to do some sort of promo code. But
Also, this could be a great way for, and this is, well, going forward with a new website and everything like that, this could be another good way of establishing a new type of member benefit for chamber members, John. If you agree, like, you know, we could have like certain promo codes for chamber members and things like that.
Absolutely. And we'll do all of that on the new website. It's just, we're not going to have a
Yeah.
new website by May.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
All right. So anyway, Jess, if you would continue to give thought, if you don't like that idea, which is fine, continue to give thought about the other ways in which you would do that, because any way in which you can measure, you know, that this person came to this hotel or had this drink or ate this meal because, actually, you won't even be able to say because, but we'll trust if this person keyed in your code, we're going to trust that you were 100% responsible for that person eating that meal or spending that money. And because we can't do anything more than that.
I mean, that's going to have to take obviously agreement and collaboration with businesses in town too, if they want to actually do that. So it's really you're only going to know for the businesses that are willing to do it. But
so you need to tell us then, and I think it would be great if you could, to me at least, it would be great if you could come to Thursday's meeting with kind of 3 short bullet points that say, if we want to do this, if you guys really want this kind of as best you can attribution, then here are the 2 things or 3 things that you have to do for me, Jess, in order for me to be able to make this work. Because I think you will need, or you tell us you don't need help from us. You can do it yourself to reach out to the businesses and whatever. Because class 4 has done that. Class 4 has said for us to do certain things, we need the EDC to do X or Y. And I think we need, that should be part of our decision process. I'm quite willing to do within reason what I'm imagining you would suggest, but because we want the impact. But so anyway, just give that some thought. Is that, Greta and Larry, does this make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's good for Jess to hear it like that too. It's like you're allowed to say that certain things are outside of the realm of what you're proposing for your scope of work, and you can say that it would need to be work from the EDC or the marketing committee and things like that.
Right.
But this is,
but
as far as like
also
what you're used to doing, as far as jesskirby.com, this is a very easy way for you to add in some direct attribution to show that you're reaching people.
And if not, if that's too
question
much
that's
trouble,
Sorry.
then we'll do the approach that I said. Sorry, go ahead, Greta.
Yep. I have one last question that I would like to ask if we're ready to move on from that question.
I am, yes. That was a good discussion. Thank you.
So the women from the housing group, the EDC, funded housing program, you've probably seen, like Trina Tolliver and Jill Davies. There are 2 main women who do a lot of work for us. And they just reached out to me this week about saying, can the EDC marketing work help us get the word out about our new programs, the ADU and the rental incentive programs, and just curious what you think could be ways of helping them spread the word. And that's a local program, so that is specifically just to people in Woodstock.
yeah. I mean, I think that would probably be a more grassroots approach. Certainly we could have something on the website, but I just know locally, like a lot of people don't use the website or even bother going to it. I think that's more of like a listserv WhatsApp group, potentially doing an email, but again, I don't even know what percentage of people locally are in the email list. So I think, yeah, that would probably be more like targeted to Facebook, maybe social, email, listserv, WhatsApp.
And then just a follow-up question for that. Do you feel like it's pretty reasonable to say that you could grow the email recipients on our owned list and kind of have them in their own bucket so that going forward, there's an easy way of communicating with that group of people?
Like a local group?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that would definitely be one of my main goals, is to grow our subscriber list locally, to better be able to communicate with people about like what's going on in town and what we have happening in the community, for sure.
But what about not local? I mean, if we want visitors,
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, I think the goal overall is to grow both. And that would be part of it too.
And then it's targeted communication between those two groups of people.
Yeah,
I imagine they're
I mean, I think, one of the things I talked about with Charles today, is, because his whole thing is that they use Klaviyo and they have like a lot of specific information about people in their list and their behaviors. Up until a certain point, because essentially what he said to me, and I could be wrong here, is that there was a certain budget that allowed them to spend a lot of money building up this list and getting all this data about people in their list. But then the budget was less, so there was not a focus on that anymore, which meant that the communications were not targeted and the collection was not targeted, which was a question I asked you, John, about why is there only like 4 categories right now when you sign up for the email list and you have to pick one. So essentially it's just like dumping you into like one bucket, which whatever those 4 buckets are, it's like culture, restaurants, kids, family, and something else. I would,
well,
yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead. Basically, you're right. They're also tracking what's happening on their own site, on our own site. But yes, your point about keep going. You're directionally right, I think.
So it's my understanding that some of that tracking is not happening anymore, meaning like they used to track the whole user experience on the site down to the email sign up, and then there would be this kind of sophisticated breadth of information about the user and all this stuff, but that's not really happening anymore because of budget. So I don't use a software that's that sophisticated, and I feel like I've been clear about that. What I would do is, if I were going to do an email sign up, I could have a list of preferences of what people were interested in. They could pick more than one if they wanted to. And then we would know that information when they sign up, like they're interested in these 5 of 10 things that we've given them options for. And then we could target communications based on that. Again, their lead generation is different because they're using ad spend and I'm not. So, but to close the loop on that, yeah, my goal would be to grow the visitor email list and the local email list. And again, I think like the existing website kind of hurts us there, but.
Yeah. Greta, can I follow up on your question about growing the list? I understand totally the value of expanding the local communications and the list, not just the list, but yeah, and everything, making the events page better, all that good stuff. And I know that that's important. But can we just talk a little bit more about how you would expand the contacts without using paid advertising or what?
Yeah.
I mean, you said you're doing SEO optimized blogs and so forth, which gets us something.
Yeah.
And maybe gets us a ton. I don't know. But anyway, just can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. And again, some of this is tricky because I don't know how easy or difficult it is going to be for me to make updates to the website.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be SEO optimized blog contents where there's more, because right now there's like 2 ways to sign up for email. There's like a pop-up when you get there, and then there's like one sign up at the bottom of the website. But we could put way more options for people to sign up for our newsletter across the website in all the content that we're sharing, whether it's a blog post or a new page or whatever. And then the other way I would do it would just be, organic calls to action, either on social, or, you know, locally in the, like I said, in the listserv and the WhatsApp groups.
But if you're not using paid vehicles, how are you the people that are going to be seeing your content
Mhm.
are going to be the people who found your content and liked it, or even
Yeah,
just found it. But
Well, or through, you know, whoever's coming to the website through organic search.
right. Okay, that's a good
The
point.
website gets a decent amount of traffic.
Yeah, 60% of the traffic, I believe, is organic.
Mhm.
So for that 60%,
It could be even better if it was a good website.
you're on an equal. I'm thinking about this. You're on an equal footing with paid advertising on the organic traffic on 60% of it, because that's coming. We haven't paid for that. That's coming. And now it's the content that's going to grab them or not. And for the 40%, is there, other than really all you're doing is generating organic with SEO optimized blogs, right?
Mhm.
So, yeah. So I think, is it fair to say that we're likely to get less, the 40% volume, the paid volume obviously is likely to go down. But
Yeah, I mean, I am not gonna say that I'm gonna grow your email list like class 4. Like I'm
right.
not, I don't have the capability to do that.
Right.
They have a very sophisticated lead generation program that they use.
Right.
And like I said, that they put money behind that I'm just not.
Yeah.
To do.
Just,
Yeah.
just a thought. I used to run a business, and we actually hired out to an individual who was an expert in pay-per-click, whatever it was. That's what we called it back then, and Google
Yeah.
Ads and whatever. Is there any thought that you could coordinate with that kind of person who has that kind of expertise and interest?
You
Yeah,
could
for
hire
sure.
that person.
Yeah.
Hire that person, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of why Charles and I talked, because
That would be their role, actually.
they do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think then it comes the question of like budget and who's doing what, and we have to figure that out.
So one thing that would be interesting on this point, I don't know how I feel about it, but I don't think it could hurt your proposal, is to give us an option for testing some paid, a small piece of your program, not to take it out of your current budget,
Mhm.
but basically say, look, as you said, it's apples and oranges, these two approaches.
Mhm.
They both have virtues. If we were to, one way to marry them would be if you give me an extra $3,500, we'll run 2 tests of paid. We'll do it at a time when we can measure the results. And those results are digital results, right? What we care about there is how many people come to the website, how much time do they spend, how many emails do they open, whatever. And and I'm able to do that, unless you, by the way, don't recommend that or don't include that if you don't think it's good for us. We're relying on your judgment.
I feel like it's not a matter of what I think is good for you. It's what are your goals? If you want to really grow your email list a lot, like the way class 4 did, then like I said, I can't deliver that on my own.
No, our goals are to increase retail revenues and attractive and well, our goals this year are, as we said, to get May and June up, to get kids into the school.
Yeah.
And to have more events published. Those are our goals for now. So I guess what I'm saying is if you think that paid, we're going to have to choose between an approach that's very currently with the proposals that's extremely paid centric and not at all paid centric.
Right.
And so it just feels instinctively that maybe having an option that's slightly between those might be a plus, but only if you think that it could help with the goals that we've asked for this year. And if you don't, then don't propose it and say that's why you're not proposing. I think that's, just to be clear. I'm not in favor of pose. I don't know.
I
I'm
guess
not an
I
expert.
guess I feel like, and I'm not saying that you feel this way, but it feels a little bit like a trick question because it's like, yeah, of course it could help. Like if you're going to
No, but
spend more money on paid ads, it could help. But like, do you want to spend money on that?
but it depends whether we all think it would get us anything. Would more people spend money here in May and June? Or would more kids transfer to the school? If we're not sure, then don't, if the answer is we're not sure, then we shouldn't do it.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
genuinely.
okay. All right, well, then don't propose, then you shouldn't propose it. We don't want you to. Because we would want you to say, I think. Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's a great
John,
question, Greta.
the other thing is that the class 4 folks need to justify expenditures on that kind of approach, you know, a 40,000 person email list that doesn't produce, which this one apparently has not particularly, may look good, but maybe the probably organic would be a much higher quality list. Just
Well, and I guess that, yeah, that's what I'm struggling with, Larry, and that's what I keep trying to talk to with Charles about is like, so we have all these people and we have some of this data, but like, what are we doing with it and what has it done? You know what I mean? Like, because at this point, there's no targeted emails happening, and now the sign up is just putting people in 4 buckets, but those buckets are kind of meaningless. So I get,
Well,
yeah, I guess it's kind of like what.
Well, that's not, I think that's not quite right. They're putting the ads in front of a very carefully selected, segmented group. They just don't know who. In others, they're putting the ads in front of, they're targeting where the ads get seen. They're not they're not allowed to capture that data. They're basically saying, we want to put this ad in front of people who buy maple syrup, who enjoy skiing and are between the ages of 30 and 42, who have children, et cetera. And it's more complicated than that. And Facebook, the Meta platform says, okay, we can give you 1.675 million people like that. And they go ahead and put the ads in front of it. What we're collecting, we're now no longer allowed to collect that, or maybe we never were.
Right.
So that,
but what I'm saying is now on the website, when you go to sign up for the email, there's just 4 big buckets and you have
correct.
to pick.
Right. No, I agree with you. I agree with your characterization. It's just, I was just adding on that where they're doing the targeting is where the ads get placed. Unfortunately, right. That's all everything you've said. I just wanted to add that in. That's all. There is that targeting happening. It's just, we get the general benefit from it, but we don't get the specific individual tracking.
But then I guess my point is to follow up from that now, like, what has that communication looked like with those people in that list? Like, I don't know, because I don't know historically. I think
you're raising some really good questions, and it's definitely been affected by the budget. I don't know either, but the effectiveness has been reduced by the budget. That's your point, and I agree with that.
When did we reduce the budget, John? We gave him $100,000.
That's the reduction.
What's that?
First year it was like 150.
Oh, okay.
We didn't know any of this, and frankly, I don't think it was appropriate for us to know it. You know what I mean? It's like they can't share everything with us. It was a discussion among the marketing committee and class 4, and they decided that was the best way to use the money. Yeah, I'm sure it was. I'm not doubting it. It's just Jessica is describing correctly the implication of it.
Yeah, and a lot of the marketing committee meetings, will bring up something like, can they do this? And Patrick is always like, well, that was cut out of the budget. That was cut out of the budget. That was cut out of the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a very good discussion. I have to run. But I had one more question, which I'll make it short, but only if I can remember what it was. And I can't. I'm going to remember as soon as I hang up. Anyway,
any questions?
That's a very short question, John.
Yeah. Can I remember? Question mark. Larry, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I did, but I think I'm shoveling through my minor brain here. I think they're all answered. A comment that the short-term solution that you're suggesting about the website, hopefully is you underline short-term, because I would like to come out of the, what we do on Thursday, there to be a commitment, as I've discussed with you, to move the website over to WordPress or whatever the pros want us to do.
Totally. Yeah, totally. We need to fix it. We have to go, just so you understand, we don't have the right to fix it.
Yeah, I
It's
understand.
as simple as that. And so we have to get the right to fix it. Or we have to launch Woodstock-Vermont.com, which we own.
No, we
which
don't
would be-
want to, we don't, no, we can't lose.
I told Larry that.
We can't.
Right.
I know, I'm also not a tech person. I'm like, great, let's do it. And everyone's like, no, you don't want to do that.
No,
Right.
can't do
It's
that.
the nuclear option.
Yeah.
So-
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Great.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Jess.
Thanks.
This is a
I'll
very
see
good
you
discussion.
Thursday. And Jess, I'm going to email you and Charles this afternoon.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Jess, can you hold on for a second? I have a question for you.
Yeah,
It's not,
absolutely.
it's not relevant to everybody else, I don't think.
Larry, when I hang up, I may.
Oh, yeah.
Shoot.
Oh, you can
I'll-
call me,
no.
Larry.
Jess, I'll email you.
Okay.
Or whatever.
All right. Actually, just stay on for 1 second, because when I hang up, it may continue. It's up to you. So,
Okay.
all right.
we'll
Thanks,
wait.
guys. Take care. No, it's not gonna continue. Sorry. All right,
Okay.
Larry, call her or write her an email. Bye.
I'll do it.